would have gone out there on stage. I wouldn't have been able to hear anything, and I would have fainted. But the hostility was completely inappropriate because, in fact, those people liked me. I mean, that hostility was just some feeling that was, left over from some previous experience. Because somehow in our social existence today, we're only allowed to express our feelings weirdly and indirectly. If you express them directly, everybody goes crazy.
Well, did you express your feelings about what those people said to you?
No. I mean, I didn't even know what I felt until I thought about it later. And I mean, at the most, in a situation like that, even if I had known what I felt, I might say something if I'm really annoyed, like, oh yeah, well, that's just fascinating. And I probably will faint tonight, just as you did.
I do just the same thing myself. We can't be direct, so we end up saying the weirdest things. I remember a night, it was a couple of weeks after my mother died, and I was in pretty bad shape, and I had dinner with 3 relatively close friends, 2 of whom had known my mother quite well, and all 3 of whom had known me for years. We went through that entire evening without my being able to, for a moment, get anywhere near, not that I wanted to sit and have this dreary evening, which I was talking about all this pain that I was going through and everything, really, not at all, but the fact that nobody could say, gee, what a shame about your mother, or how are you feeling? It was just as if nothing had happened. They were all making these jokes and laughing. I got quite crazy, as a matter of fact. One of these people mentioned a certain man of mine I don't like very much, and I started screeching about how he'd just been found in the Bronx River and his penis had dropped off from gonorrhea, all kinds of insane things. And later, when I got home, I realized I'd just been desperate to break through this ice.
Yeah.
I mean, do you realize, Wally, if you brought that situation into a Tibetan home, that'd be just so far out. They wouldn't be able to understand it. I mean, that'd be simply so weird, Wally. If 4 Tibetans came together and tragedy had just struck one of the ones and they spent the whole evening going, Tibetans would have looked at that and thought that was the most unimaginable behavior. But for us, that's common behavior. And really, the Africans would have probably put their spears into all 4 of us because it would have driven them crazy. They would have thought we were dangerous animals or something like that. I mean, that's absolutely abnormal behavior.
Is everything all right, gentlemen?
Great.
But those are typical evenings for us. I mean, we go to dinners and parties like that all the time. These evenings are really like sort of sickly dreams because people are talking in symbols. Everyone's sort of floating through this fog of symbols and unconscious feelings. No one says what they're really thinking about. Then people start making these jokes that are really some sort of secret code.
Right. Well, what often happens in some of these evenings is that these really crazy little fantasies will just start being played with, and everybody will be talking at once and sort of saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if Frank Sinatra and Mrs. Nixon and blah, blah, blah were in such and such a situation, always with famous people and always sort of grotesque. People will be talking about some horrible thing like the death of that girl in the car with Ted Kennedy, and they'll just be roaring with laughter. I mean, it's really amazing. It's just unbelievable. That's the only way anything is expressed, through these completely insane jokes. I mean, I think that's why I never understand what's going on in a party. I'm always completely confused. Debbie once said after one of these New York evenings, she thought she'd traveled a greater distance just by journeying from her origins in the suburbs of Chicago to that New York evening than her grandmother had traveled in making her way from the steps of Russia to the suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, I think that's right. It may be, Wally, that one of the reasons that we don't know what's going on is that when we're there at a party, we're all too busy performing. That was one of the reasons that Grotowski gave up the theater. He just felt that people in their lives now were performing so well that performance in the theater was sort of superfluous and in a way obscene. I mean, isn't it amazing how often a doctor will live up to our expectation of how a doctor should look? We see a terrorist on television, he looks just like a terrorist. I mean, we live in a world in which fathers or single people or artists are all trying to live up to someone's fantasy of how a father or a single person or an artist should look and behave. They all act as if they know exactly how they ought to conduct themselves at every single moment, and they all seem totally self-confident. course, privately, people are very mixed up about themselves. They don't know what they should be doing with their lives. They're reading all these self-help books.
Oh, God, I mean, those books are just so touching because they show how desperately curious we all are to know how all the others of us are really getting on in life, even though by performing these roles all the time, we're just hiding the reality of ourselves from everybody else. I mean, we live in such ludicrous ignorance of each other. I mean, we usually don't know the things we'd like to know, even about our supposedly closest friends. I mean, suppose you're going through some kind of hell in your own life. Well, you would love to know if your friends have experienced similar things, but we just don't dare to ask each other.
No, it'd be like asking your friend to drop his role.
I mean, we just put no value at all on perceiving reality. I mean, on the contrary, this incredible emphasis that we all place now on our so-called careers automatically makes perceiving reality a very low priority. Because if your life is organized around trying to be successful in a career, well, it just doesn't matter what you perceive or what you experience. You can really sort of shut your mind off for years ahead in a way. You can sort of turn on the automatic pilot. Just the way your mother's doctor had on his automatic pilot when he went in and he looked at the arm and he totally failed to perceive anything else.
So right, our minds are just focused on these goals and plans, which in themselves are not reality.
No, goals and plans are not, they're fantasy. They're part of a dream life. It always just does seem so ridiculous somehow that everybody has to have his little goal in life. It's so absurd in a way. When you consider that it doesn't matter which one it is.
Right. And because people's concentration is on their goals, in their life they just live each moment by habit. Really like the Norwegian telling the same stories over and over again. Life becomes habitual. And it is today. Very few things happen now, like that moment when Marlon Brando sent the Indian woman to accept the Oscar and everything went haywire. Things just very rarely go haywire now. And if you're just operating by habit, then you're not really living. In Sanskrit, the root of the verb to be is the same as to grow or to make grow.